Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by bigfouraccountingfirms.com. If you enjoy our show, don't forget to help us out by subscribing to this podcast, sharing it with a friend, and providing us with a review on iTunes. Check out the show notes below for the link. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the damage control that the Big Four have been having to do recently with regard to gender issues. More specifically, we're going to talk about sexual harassment at the Big Four firms and also gender pay gaps. First off, I wanted to talk about Ernst & Young's latest controversy around sexual harassment. Ernst & Young's office managing partner in South Australia, Don Manifold, had to recently leave his post at the firm's Adelaide office because he was found guilty of violating their code of conduct. And after a rigid 6-week investigation following sexual harassment allegations from one of his co-workers, the firm revealed that there was indeed a breach of workplace policies involving Mr. Manifold and a female colleague, and her name was left out of the investigation report. However, Ernst & Young was quick to clarify that the sexual harassment claims against Mr. Manifold were never corroborated. But as a sign of transparency and commitment to clean this up, Tony Johnson, who is Ernst & Young's Australian chief executive, notified E&Y Australia employees via email about the investigation report, and he stressed that the firm's stance on bullying and harassment was that it's unacceptable. And Tony Johnson urged employees to report such cases to management and to the right risk areas, and he also assured them that each report would be taken seriously and in confidence. And he said, "My ask of all staff and partners is to recognize and reward positive behaviors and to call out unacceptable behavior whenever you see it, whether in the workplace or out of the workplace. Because, as you may or may not know, workplace policies also apply to things like work-sponsored happy hours." And Mr. Manifold will be replaced by Mark Phelps, who is a senior auditor of the firm's Adelaide office and is associated with several reputable organizations such as the Adelaide Football Club, Catherine House, Access to Place, and United Way in various capacities. And other names were also announced to support Mr. Phelps' new leadership team, including Lindsay Carr, who is the people partner, Mark Stewart and Craig Whiteman as service line leaders, and Ben Bishop as transactions advisory services partner. And it wasn't just Ernst & Young that was all over the news about a scandal. KPMG was also in the news, and they had to do damage control themselves when Adrian Lanzilli, their South Australian partner, was involved in a sexual harassment case himself. He, too, tendered his resignation, but without even waiting for the investigation to begin. And yes, it doesn't just end in Australia, as KPMG's reputation has been tarnished in the United States, in the UK, and in South Africa due to other allegations of misconduct and questionable work quality. What does this mean out there for everyone? It means that there will be much more awareness about sexual harassment within the Big Four because of all these news headlines, and also because of the Me Too movement and all the gender equality movements around the world. And I'm already seeing it at the Big Four firm where I work. There are notices about harassment everywhere, on the TV screens around the office, on our laptops, in our emails, on the firm newswire. And additionally, there will be more training necessary. And I feel like I've already taken multiple trainings about workplace behavior and harassment this year. But this won't stop. It'll just increase because now there's going to be more fears around this. And the Big Four are very reactionary to poor performers. But I think in workplaces, there are hundreds of thousands of employees within the Big Four. So there are always going to be bad apples. But you can never combat and get rid of those bad apples with training. It's always about the culture and the system and how the culture and the system combat that. It's not about individual trainings, because the Big Four have never-ending trainings about their values and culture. But if things contrary to that are happening, then they need to look into that. And a big part of this that people don't talk about is Big Four culture, because Big Four culture is to hire the youngest people right out of college. And that's why many of you are listening to this podcast, because you're in college trying to learn about the job you'll be going into, because you'll soon be going into the Big Four as a young person. But what you don't understand is you'll be going into there as, a young person right out of college with no experience. And you'll be going into a work environment of older people in their 40s and 50s. And what you have happen is you have older men who go out to happy hours with younger, more attractive women. And happy hours are kind of the norm at the Big Four because there's so many young people. And this is where that environment is kind of fostered sometimes. And, it maybe needs to be spoken about this happy hour culture and, making people feel safe in this happy hour culture. And because I think a lot of this harassment is probably starting there, if not happening there alone, versus, in the workplace and the Big Four fostering that culture. And it's really because there's so many young people, right? And they want to hang out and drink and have fun. And, maybe that needs to be spoken about a little bit more. You won't see too many trainings about that in the Big Four. In addition to harassment, KPMG had some other bad news this week, and that news really came out of the Wall Street Journal. And this article was about how KPMG benefits globally from their revenues from all of their member firms. But when it comes to their huge scandals, such as KPMG South Africa, they keep it local. And KPMG, along with the rest of the Big Four accounting firms, have been called out because of the way they manage these controversies, whether it's related to their employees or actual audit work they produce in their local partner offices. And critics say that the very nature of the organization's structure is to blame the lack of accountability on the firm's headquarters. Critics claim that while the firm's global offices uphold a strong brand and reputation and provide strategic guidance and oversight, they have little to no control over what their local employees are doing and how they are executing the work. And critics also assert that the Big Four's global offices actually prefer it that way to keep their risk low. They want their affiliates' issues to be resolved locally, as if putting up a firewall so that the local noise won't raise up to a global level and make the firm lose their major clients. So, for example, KPMG will speak about South Africa and say, well, that's not really KPMG. That's KPMG South Africa. That's a different partnership. They are a partnership and they're separate from us. We're a global firm and there's a couple bad actors there, but us as a firm can't manage that. And that's not really true, because they'll take all of that partnership's revenue, but they don't want to take any of the risk. And some of the critics say the only time you will hear, well, we're not all KPMG, is when they get sued. And that's what one of these lawyers who's handling one of these cases against the accounting firm said. And to address this problem, the PCAOB requires accounting firms to disclose if they are working with local affiliates when they are conducting an audit. And that way the investors know, hey, this affiliate might not be up to shape and might not be able to perform at the standards of KPMG or another Big Four accounting firm's U.S. office. And this move started last year, and it hopes to tighten the global controls over local affiliates and protect U.S.-based firms and their clientele. Ultimately, scandalous local offices may have to be dissociated from the global network to maintain the firm's credibility. And the PCAOB chairman recently acknowledged that this might be a bit challenging, given that the local affiliates are also protected by their country's policies on licensing and ownership, and will thus be difficult to open an investigation if needed. But we've seen this before with the PCAOB trying to penalize, Brazilian offices of Deloitte and other firms as well. And on the heels of all this controversy from E&Y and KPMG and sexual harassment came a huge pay gap report out of the UK from E&Y and Deloitte. They were the first of the Big Four to release their pay gap numbers in the UK. And this is where large companies in the United Kingdom have to report gender pay gaps to show how women are at a disadvantage financially when compared to their male counterparts. And E&Y was first to report, and they reported a mean gender pay gap of 38.1% and a median pay gap of 19.5%. So not only do women at E&Y have to face harassment, but it seems like you have to earn less than the men harassing you. And E&Y stated that they are invested in transparency around this issue and that they are also invested in over 20 initiatives to reduce the gender pay gap. And the bigger news around gender pay gaps came from Deloitte. Their UK branch is being slammed by critics for paying their female employees 43.2% lower compared to their male counterparts. And this gap represents a wide disparity between the opportunities available to male and female workers, particularly at the senior management level. And this was supported by the statement made by Emma Codd, who's Deloitte UK's managing partner for talent. She stated, "These calculations again serve as a stark reminder that we don't have enough women in senior roles. This is not about unequal pay, but the shape of our firm," end quote. Deloitte UK revealed this information in response to the requirement imposed by the UK government companies with over 250 staff. Last year, Deloitte UK reported that the mean salary gap was only 18.2% because they deliberately excluded highly paid executives and partners from the equation. Political groups harshly criticized the accounting firm as well as other global companies like Ernst & Young and Barclays for inaccurately reporting their pay gap. And lawmaker Nikki Morgan even accused them of exploiting a technical and legal loophole through their selective computation. However, Deloitte wanted to make things right and revise the report. We listened to the calls for firms such as ours to do more in how we report our gender pay gap data. We are firmly committed to transparency and achieving consistency in gender pay gap reporting standards. And that was a quote from David Sproul, who is Deloitte UK's senior executive. Needless to say, issues like these can have a huge and lasting impact on the reputation of accounting firms and their global brands. If left unresolved, they may lead to less clients or could even throw them into a downward spiral, especially in local countries, as we spoke about before. And why did Deloitte exclude senior management and these other big four firms exclude senior management? One of the reasons they would exclude senior management is because they feel like, of course, there's more men in senior ranks because women choose to leave the workplace or choose to go into part-time roles. So you can't compare the women that are staffed there because they might have taken a break for their children. They might have taken multiple breaks. So Deloitte feels like it's not fair to compare those women to, these senior men that have never taken a break and are earning millions of dollars. Because then you'll have this huge gender pay gaps, right? Women working part-time. If you're on a part-time salary, you're not earning as much. So that's why they chose to exclude that. And, that's where this equation becomes a little bit skewed because the genders do make different choices around their career. So it's like you have this double-edged sword and you don't know how to report it because it is so skewed right now. You're going to have these huge percentages. But, I think that's kind of the point, right, is to report these every year until they go down. But I think you're going to have critics on both sides of this thing once it starts getting reduced because it's just like affirmative action in the United States. There's now people that are completely combating that because there's people that have 4.0s and have done everything and they just get denied because people are equaling things out. So we'll have to see how this continues in the news as it goes forward. PwC had the positive news this week. PwC added 6 new clients in the first quarter of 2018, shooting them to the top of the FTSE 250 auditor rankings. And so this was in Europe where this happened. And this means that PwC audits the most companies listed in the FTSE 250. They now audit 69 clients in the FTSE 250. And KPMG came in second spot as they audit 66 clients in the FTSE 250. And Deloitte dropped down from first to third place in the rankings after they dropped 6 clients in Q1 of 2018. And this takes them down to third place with 63 clients. And EY came in last as they dropped 2 clients, and they are now at 42 clients in the FTSE 250. So again, in the FTSE 250 auditing rankings, PwC came in first, KPMG came in second, Deloitte dropped to third, and EY came in fourth. And this is pretty consistent with how the big four are ranked in Europe. KPMG does have kind of a strong brand in the FTSE 100 auditor rankings, but it's typically KPMG, PwC, and Deloitte always in the top 3 and E&Y in the last place there. And in a move to widen its lead in Europe, PwC created the role of Chief Experience Officer, and they picked Roger Gagnon to be the first executive to fill up this important post in Europe. And with this move, PwC looks to carry out its new consulting strategy of combining business experience and technology to help clients accelerate their business transformation. And this role will really help PwC in expanding their growth into marketing and design, as this role will focus on user design in the technology industry. And really, this is what people call UX or user experience. It's like how clients interact with interfaces. And, this is big for things like Salesforce and other things like that. Like people want to make sure that, their products are being interfaced right. Think of things on smartphones and other software technologies where it's user experience that matters. And as PwC and these other firms and these other firms build out technology solutions such as robotics, process automation, and blockchain technologies, you want to make sure that the users have the right experience, not only for products that they develop for their clients, but that they'll also consult clients on how to make their technologies and software appealing to users. Wanted to take a quick break today to tell you about our Big Four interview course. Did you know that only 4% of candidates get into the Big Four? That's right, only 4%. Deloitte gets about 500,000 applications a year, and only 4% of those candidates get in. Well, we want to help you get a job at the Big Four. We want to help you be part of that 4% by preparing you for your Big Four interview, and we think we can do this with our Big Four interview course. Our Big Four interview course provides you with all the important things that you need to do to prep for your Big Four interview. This includes research on all the Big Four that's prepared for you, and also guidance on how to conduct more specific research on the firm and practice you'll be interviewing with. We also walk you through interview questions and how to answer those interview questions the way the Big Four professionals will want them to be answered, among other valuable insights into the Big Four. And if that isn't enough, we offer a PDF of 100 additional Big Four interview questions and a Big Four resume template. You've invested in your accounting education, and you invest in your accounting exam, whether that's a CPA exam or another course. So why not invest in a Big Four interview course to help you nail the Big Four interview? Check out the link to the Big Four interview course in the show notes to learn more. Thanks, and now we'll get you back to the show.
We appreciate your help in growing this podcast so we can continue to bring you the best Big Four content possible. You could help us out by providing a review on iTunes, sending us an email with your comments, and don't forget to share with your friends. There's a link below in the show notes. That's our show for today. Thanks for listening and have a great day.